Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm talking about a film you can stream right now on HBO Max, and that is a legacy sequel to A Christmas Story called A Christmas Story Christmas. Though there have been sequels to A Christmas Story before, like A Summer Story and A Christmas Story 2, what makes A Christmas Story Christmas different and why it's considered a legacy sequel is because a lot of the original cast came back to be a part of this movie. So Peter Billingsley is actually playing Ralphie again. The actor who played Randy is actually playing Randy again. The actor who played Flick, the actor who played Schwartz, all of them are actually back playing these characters they once played back in 1983. But in this movie, you guys, like I said, it is a direct sequel and it's also a legacy sequel to that first Christmas Story movie. We find Ralphie in his adult years. It's roughly 30 years later. I think it's someplace in the 70s now for the timeline, in the early 1970s, I want to say. And he's trying to publish a book. It's a science fiction novel. It's really long, though. It's like a 2,000-page novel that he's trying to get published. Nobody wants to do it, nobody wants to publish it. He offers to shorten the story and stuff like that. Nobody wants to publish it. And while all this is going on, and while Christmas is approaching as well, he gets a phone call from his mother back in Indiana because he's living in Chicago now trying to get this book published. And he lives with his family there. He has a wife and two kids now in Chicago. But he gets a phone call from his mother, and they find out that his father passed away, the character who played the old man in the first Christmas Story, Darren McGavin. And obviously, with Darren McGavin being gone in real life, they really couldn't have used him in the movie anyway. So, in the story of the movie, though, the father passes away. Ralphie and his family go back to Indiana to go visit his mom to kind of grieve with her and to see what they can do to help her out. A lot of neighbors have given her these casseroles that she has a hard time finishing just because there's just so many now she has to eat up. And since Christmas is approaching and since she really hasn't done anything with the house yet as far as getting Christmas ready to go, Ralphie and the family offer to stay there for Christmas and to basically help her get it ready and things like that. And over the course of this film, Ralphie gets this opportunity to write the obituary for his father, to kind of give him this writing opportunity until this book gets off the ground and he finds a publisher for that. And also, he reconnects with Flick and Schwartz and some other friends from the Christmas Story movie from the first film. He gets to reconnect with them and kind of see how they're doing. He also runs into people that he was hoping not to run into again, such as Scott Farkus and Grover Dill and things like that. So there's all that happens over the course of A Christmas Story Christmas. Ralphie's trying to get published. He's trying to help his mom grieve over the loss of his father. He's trying to help his mother get Christmas ready with her kind of being by herself in this house now and with her being really old now. So this all happens over the course of A Christmas Story Christmas. But overall, guys, I enjoyed this movie. I didn't love this movie, but I enjoyed this movie. I'm a huge fan of The Christmas Story from 1983. Almost every Christmas year, I watch it at least once. It is kind of a family tradition for me to turn on A Christmas Story. Gene Shepard wrote such a great short story back in the day. It was a part of a novel called In God We Trust, On All Others Pay Cash. And so it's basically a story within a story. It was basically a bunch of short stories he wrote while he was living in Indiana and some other mishaps he had while growing up. And it's just a really funny novel. But I have read the actual Christmas Story short story that's in that book. And I really like it. And obviously, it turned into a great movie, obviously. And it's one of those unfortunate things where, yeah, they've tried to do follow ups to Christmas Story before, like I said, with A Summer Story and Christmas Story 2, and almost all of them seem to bomb in some way. And, when I heard they were making another one, I'm like, oh, do they really want to go down that path again? And so thankfully, I'm here to tell you that this is a good movie. Like I said, not a great movie, but a good follow up finally to Christmas Story. We finally got a good sequel now. It's not the disaster that Christmas Story 2 was and Summer Story and stuff like that. But let's go over some positives and negatives, the things I liked about the film and things that I thought could have been better about it. For my positives of the film, though, most of the cast does come back. We get Flick, we get Schwartz, we get Ralphie, we get Randy. The mother is back. She's not played by Melissa Dillon, though. I guess Melissa Dillon retired from acting in 2007, from what I read online. So she chose not to come back. But they got the actress who played Richard Dreyfuss's wife in What About Bob. She plays the mother in this movie. Does a great job. Everybody involved did a great job acting wise. And like I said, most of the cast came back. It was great to see Flick and Schwartz and Ralphie and Randy, all of them show up in this movie. And it is great to see the cast back. It's great to see what they've been up to. It's great to see what Peter Billingsley and the other screenwriters involved came up with as far as what all these characters have been doing over the past 30 years since the first movie. And it was just great to see them back. It brought a lot of joy into my life to see these characters doing well and pursuing the life and having families, having careers. It was just great to see the cast come back to do one last hurrah with the Christmas Story story. There's also a lot of sweet and cute moments throughout the movie. For those who might remember the Bumpuses from the first Christmas Story, they kind of have a bigger role this time around than in the first movie. In the first movie, they would have dogs that would run around Ralphie's house and bother his dad and stuff like that. This time, it's more than just the dogs. You actually get to see the Bumpuses family every once in a while show up in this. And what I liked about that is there's a scene where Ralphie's daughter, with him having a family now, takes care of this small dog that was kind of left out in the cold from the Bumpuses, and so they have a whole subplot about that. And there's just a lot of sweet, cute moments like that that really keep the film going, really keep it sweet and cute like the first movie. So for those who are looking for stuff like that, A Christmas Story Christmas has a lot of those moments. And it does try to recreate what Bob Clark did in that first Christmas Story movie, and some of it's done in a very clever way. They really do try to recreate the shots, give it the same look, really make it feel like, where would these characters be in the 70s? Where would these characters be 30 years later? And for the most part, they successfully recreate what Bob Clark started in that first Christmas Story movie. And that's something I think Summer Story and Christmas Story 2 did not do a very good job with. It didn't feel like it belonged in that same universe, and this movie does. This movie does feel like a continuation of what we saw back in 1983 and where the characters now, how it's done in the same style. If Bob Clark, because I think he's passed away too, if he were alive today and was making this Christmas Story Christmas, how would he do it? How would he approach it? And for the most part, I think they did it the way he probably would have done it and successfully have done it. And so I do like how they recreated this film to make it look like it belonged with that first movie. You also really feel invested in Ralphie's writing journey. You really do want him to get this book published. You can tell he put a lot of thought and time and money into this thing, and his family wants him to get published. His family wants him to get the recognition he deserves. They put a lot of money on the line to make sure that he can get this book published, and you feel bad for the guy. Like I said, there's this obituary opportunity with his father that really kind of gets him off the ground with his writing career, and you really do feel invested in Ralphie's journey, and I really like that about this movie. I also thought Ralphie's wife and kids are a great addition to this movie. How every once in a while you'll get a sequel, and some of the new characters feel like they don't belong with the old ones. This time around, I think they successfully did this. They successfully added in a wife for Ralphie and some kids for him to start his own family, and they feel like they belong within this Christmas Story universe. They get a lot to do. They get a lot of funny things to do. There's a lot of things that Ralphie's kids get into mischief with while they're visiting the mom, and things that the wife does that get her in a little bit of trouble too. And they were great additions to the story. Whenever they show up in the film, it brought a big smile to my face. It was great seeing new characters fit in with the old characters so well in this movie. And every once in a while, you'll get these shot-to-shot comparisons, and they really bring that home with the end credits of this movie. They really show you kind of the shots they were intentionally trying to make look like from 1983's Christmas Story movie, whether it's a shot of Ralphie doing something, or a shot of, back when Ralphie and Randy were visiting Santa in the mall and being pushed down the slide and stuff like that. Really clever stuff. You could definitely tell they went back, really evaluated that first Christmas Story movie and tried to figure out how we can follow this up while making it feel like it belongs in the same universe, while not doing it necessarily a shot-for-shot remake, but making sure it feels like it's also shot and filmed in the same way that the first film was. So very clever, very well done. The end credits really bring home how much they were really trying to recreate certain moments from the first movie and bring it into a new film. For my negatives of this movie, though, some of the jokes unfortunately do not land here. One joke that really kind of got on my nerves is because they kept going back to it. They really tried to. They must have thought it was really funny because it goes on for a long time and they bring it up more than once. That the mom doesn't like carolers showing up to the house She thinks they're evil. She thinks they'll never leave if you acknowledge them and stuff like that. Of course, Ralphie's wife likes them, and so there's a whole ordeal about that. Some of the jokes really don't land for me, and that's not necessarily the actors or actresses' fault. It was just a bad joke that came up during the writing process that they thought was funny for some reason, and they keep going back to it, and it's just not a funny joke. And there's some other jokes along the way that really aren't that funny either. Um, so unfortunately, even though there's a lot of effective jokes in this movie, some of the jokes also don't land in this movie necessarily either. So that's one downside of the movie. I also thought there were some times in the movie where I felt like I wasn't watching, even though it felt connected to that first Christmas Story movie. I feel like if Gene Shepard was still alive, because unfortunately he's passed away too, but there was a lot of times where I felt like it wasn't told in the perspective that he would have saw things. I would have liked to see more of a story of how Gene Shepard would have saw these characters in the 70s, pursuing a career, pursuing whatever. Because there's just a lot of moments where I felt like somebody else was continuing it, and I don't know if that's the intention of this movie. I think they really were trying to make it feel like it belonged to that 1983 film. And there's just a lot of perspectives where it's just like, I just don't know if I could see Gene Shepard doing it. I don't know if I could see him doing that either, and I couldn't see him doing that joke for that one situation. Because for me personally, when I think of Gene Shepard's side of the Christmas story, I think the father taking care of the furnace and finding the really terrible tree out while bargaining, and they bring that joke back and stuff. But there's a lot of moments where I feel like if Gene Shepard was still alive today and got involved in the writing process, it would have played out a little bit differently. So I would have liked to see more of a story that fits more into what Gene Shepard's perspective of was for the Christmas Story film. And also, overall, I think the film is just not quite as magical or as relatable as that first Christmas Story movie. You could really kind of be in all walks of life and really appreciate that first Christmas Story movie, even if you're not a big Christmas person. I don't know if this film's going to have the same impact as the first one, even though I liked it. I don't know if I'm going to constantly revisit this film every Christmas from here on out. It'll be interesting to see how Time's going to treat this movie. It's going to be interesting to see if this film has any kind of a life outside of HBO Max, but though I liked it, though it's effective, it isn't quite as magical or as relatable as that first Christmas Story movie. But overall, I'm going to give A Christmas Story Christmas, that's the title, Christmas Story Christmas, 8.5 out of 10. I really liked it. There's a lot of good things about it. They really tried to recreate that magic of the first film, while maybe not always successfully doing it. Well, a couple negatives happened along the way. But overall, very enjoyable. It's a fun Christmas movie, and finally a good follow-up, a true good follow-up to that first Christmas Story film. So, Christmas Story Christmas, I give it an 8.5 out of 10. I recommend it. You don't have to go out of your way to see it. It's not quite that good, but it's very good though. Finally, a good follow-up to A Christmas Story, and like I said, I recommend it. So if you have HBO Max, give it a try. It's a good little Christmas movie.